Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dear Miss T with our very own psychotherapist, spiritual teacher, and mentor extraordinaire, Terry Ruel. Good morning, Terry.
Well, thank you. Good morning to you, and good morning to everyone out there. Can you hear me?
We can, and we're really excited for the show this morning, Terry.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. Well, happy 4th. I hope everybody had a nice holiday weekend here in the States. We were celebrating Independence Day. And I was very happy to see that our Indigenous brothers and sisters got to meet with President Biden about Line 3, shutting down Line 3 and 5, and saving the Great Lakes. And I think that's a very sacred mission. And so that kind of made my weekend too. And we've been talking about life after COVID. And some people have, mentioned that they still feel like, it's not over yet, especially with the variants coming in. And some places numbers are going up because we haven't been able to reach herd immunity and get enough people vaccinated. So that's going to be part of also dealing with life after COVID. Is there's still going to be some of the stressors of COVID. And one of the things, that we really want to keep reassuring people is that, you can continue to wear your mask indoors, especially. Do what helps you feel comfortable. Even if you've been inoculated, you can still wear your mask indoors and outdoors if you want, whatever helps you feel comfortable. But yes, it's not completely over, but we have a much better handle on it. And I think a lot more control than sometimes we hear in the media. So what we've been talking about is the main feeling that the research is showing that people are experiencing in 2021 and probably into 2022. And they're calling it languishing. And last time we took a little quiz to see where everybody was in on a scale between flourishing or just kind of really feeling like they were just still in survival mode. And languishing is kind of that feeling in between where you don't really feel depressed or, totally hopeless, but you don't feel like you're flourishing either. And of course, that can have many symptoms, trouble concentrating, trouble focusing, not really burned out, but just not very high energy. Sometimes to even feel a little joyless, aimless, or mainly just feeling kind of stagnated. And of course, sometimes we still get waves of grief through this process. So that can feel a little bit like depression, but if it passes, then, you're probably in languishing. If you're not feeling like you're 100%, but you're not really feeling depressed. And that, like I say, is really the dominant emotion that's coming up for most people now. So I think languishing is a pretty good word to kind of describe that. And it doesn't get enough attention in mental health. So we thought we would talk about that again, finish up with some maybe helpful things you can do to help with languishing. But of course, naming it and normalizing it is the first big step for all of us. When we know, okay, this is normal, this is what most people are going through, it's the after effects or the continued effects of dealing with the pandemic and the effects it's had in our lives in so many ways. So we've named it. We're going to tame it now, as they say, and, claim it, normalize it. And then when people talk to each other, it helps you to understand each other. You can say it. You don't have to say, oh, I'm fine, or no, I think I'm depressed, or, oh, everything's wonderful. It's like, if I don't know, sometimes that's probably what's going on, is I'm languishing. So, flourishing, of course, is our peak of well-being. That's when we have a strong sense of meaning in life. We feel like we're, in the process of mastering things, mastering our life, and that we matter to others. Yeah, we have people in our life that we matter to and matter to us. And of course, depression is the valley of well-being. And that's feeling despondent, drained, worthless, excuse me, and that's when you want to get professional help for sure. And if you can, catch it before it gets to that point and feel like, maybe it's getting there, maybe the languishing is starting to feel like depression, starting to feel more despondent, you don't have to wait till you're in the valley to reach out. We can always do prevention and maintenance too, with therapy. So languishing is that void between the absence of well-being and the flourishing. So I'm not functioning at full capacity, okay? I'm not depressed, but I'm not thriving. And like I say, it is the norm to be going through right now. And you will have weeks or days when you will flourish. And then all of a sudden, it just might drop off, and you'll have a week where you just feel like you're languishing again. And that's also normal. So,
and Terry, what about indecision? For me, if I can't decide about something, I let it go. If I can't decide, I don't decide. But it seems to me there are a lot of people who are very indecisive right now.
Yes, and that I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is very much a part of languishing. Because when there's difficulty focusing and concentrating, it's very difficult to get clear on decisions. And so if you don't have to make especially if it's a big decision, if you don't have to make it, just wait. It's okay. Just say, well, when it's, I will think about that again next week and see where it goes. But if you can't get there and you don't have to, that's okay. Just wait until it feels like it's coming clear for you. And also, with the difficulty focusing and concentrating, it's difficult to communicate with each other. So you may have to remind each other, or remind yourself of things several times. And we have to be real patient with each other, because we're still forgetting a lot. And because people are, in that state of foggy brain, you might call it, that we had called it in the past, that fogginess, things don't always register into the memory banks deeply. So we don't remember without being told something, sometimes several times. So a lot of people, have gone back to having a big calendar, great big calendar, on their wall or their fridge. And they're putting stuff on there, as well as in their phone, as well as in their planner. It's okay to have as many little helpful tools around as you can, because that's going to be part of it. And like I say, if it's not a decision you have to make, it's okay to put it off. If it is something you have to make, it's helpful to find someone, one or two people that you trust, and go over it with, so that you're not just trying to do it in your own head. And, talk it over and process it with them, or it can be a therapist too, until it becomes clear and you feel like you can make the decision. But know that you might not feel 100% it's the right decision no matter what you do, because that's our state of mind in languishing. It's hard to feel like really, you know, solid in everything. So you can only make the best decision you can with what you have to work with at the time, and then try to trust that, you know, it's going to be okay. That's, you know, you can only do your best, and know that, like I say, all this is normal, and even though it's somewhat difficult to adjust to, but there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody, this is part of, you know, you could even call it the PTSD, you know, the post-trauma of all this. And part of it is still going to continue to be difficult because, like I say, there's still things coming up hitting us too that are going to disrupt our sense of well-being. And that, you know, like the new variant, you know, so you don't want to keep hearing that over and over and over, because all it's going to do is disrupt your well-being more and more and more, and you have no control over it other than how you take care of yourself. And that's enough. If you're taking care of yourself, you're going to be safe. And so that, you know, and climate change, or, you know, things that come up in the news, there's going to be things that are going to seep through, and, you know, you're going to go down in that scale of well-being, and, you know, sometimes, and then go back up. So some weeks, you know, like say you might be at even a 3 or 4, and, you know, just kind of struggling to get back to just kind of muddling through. And then other weeks you might be at 8 or, you know, 9 for a while and feel like, okay, I'm really flourishing. And when that bottoms out again, because it may, you know, you're going to get hit with that wave of grief, and it's going to be disappointing, and you might feel like you're getting depressed a little for a couple days. But if we know ahead of time that, okay, this is going to happen sometimes, and I will come through it, it will get better again, that can help us keep going. And if you don't, you know, like say, the important thing is if you start feeling stuck, reach out and ask for help. You know, don't feel like you have to just stay in that, you know, place until you start feeling desperate. You know, reach out when you start feeling like you just need support even. And that can be, like I say, with groups of friends or your church fellowship, or, you know, whatever group that you get lifted up by, the temple within, you know, where you go in nature, whatever your rituals are, you know, do the things that keep you feel supported.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for all of that, Terry. It's so helpful and meaningful. And Holly is in the chat room, and she's bringing up a great point. There are some of us, and I'm like this as well, Holly. She's saying, I've noticed that I am more strong and calm during a stressful event, but after it ends, a delayed reaction occurs.
Yes, and that happens to a lot of us, especially people who've grown up with a lot of chaos or crisis. We get very good at learning how to cope in the crisis and be there for it. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, these people are the ones who make great, you know, ER nurses and rescue EMT people and all of that. But we're all human beings, and sooner or later we have to process that experience. So for those of us who are able to do it through the crisis, we are going to get hit with it after. And so knowing that, you make extra time when you feel that coming to process that experience. Know those feelings are going to come up now, and I just have to allow them to be there and have a way to take care of myself through it, whether it's grief or fear or anger, and, get help to do that if you need to, or, like I say, do the things that help you the most when you're feeling those kinds of feelings. One of the things they're recommending very strongly is take your weekends off, or whatever your days are that you can take off. Take them really off. Like, I know when you have kids and other things, you can't totally, check out, but as much as possible, find time on the weekends to really take time just for yourself, or at least family time that really is time off, like going camping, going to the beach, doing things that you can let go of everything. The, outside external noise, as well as any kind of work. Sometimes if you're home, you're looking at, I should be, cleaning the bathroom, or I should get this done, or I should get that. They're saying, no, try to take that time really, really off. And one of the ways they're talking about can really help with what we're going through right now is when you take that time off, or even if you can only do it for like a half hour every day, is fully invest in something that you love, that you totally get immersed in. And we all kind of know what that is from binging on Netflix and binging on, our favorite show. It's like the reason we want to do that so bad is that complete immersion is really the greatest stress reliever right now for languishing, because it kind of not only takes the stress off, but it gives you this reward of feeling like you're not carrying all that, you're just really not in it. So when you take your weekends off, or whatever days you can, or whatever hours you can, use some of that time to try to have something you fully immerse in. It can be, a, Candy Crush. It can be doing a puzzle, jigsaw puzzles. It can be getting totally lost in a book. It can be binging on Netflix, but they don't recommend just doing that. They're talking about not just total absorption, but also something that gives you a lot of satisfaction, something you love. Some kind of art or music. And it, can be playing music or just listening to music. But something that's going to give you that joy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about that total immersion is what they're finding is that if people can find a flow, find a flow with this, just like you did in the pandemic. Everybody had to stay home all the time. We kind of got forced into it. I mean, we had to kind of find some kind of flow, some kind of routine. And if you can find that in this time, that's going to also help you stay immersed in your life in a more peaceful way.
Mm-hmm.
So, it doesn't have to be like a rigid routine, but some kind of a routine where you feel like you're in a flow now, you're kind of normalizing this time, and you have things to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. In the chat room, Peggy is saying that since the last show, since we last talked about it, she's seen improvement, and that she feels she's finding her new normal and accepting things. And in the chat room, they're talking about the fact that this is a process. And Holly is adding, I've learned to make time to consciously feel, process, and release. and accepting if it takes an unspecified amount of time to do so. So even in Todd's case, he's taken up boxing, that boxing workout,
Great.
3 mornings a week, and he does it religiously. So it's a process, and finding the right way of getting rebalance for you, correct, Terry? I mean, it's unique to everybody.
Yes, that's super. You guys are nailing it. It's all about acceptance. Really is one of the keys. I'm sure going through the pandemic, you all felt some of that lift when you were able to accept, okay, this is what's happening, this is where we're at, this is the new normal. So this is kind of the accepting that this new normal is, there's going to always be a higher level of uncertainty than maybe most of us were ever used to. It's not that it wasn't always there, because really life is always uncertain. The joke, like, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? So it was always there, but wasn't so much in our face. And so the gift of all of this is that it can help us to learn to let go and go with the flow. And that really is one of the secrets to health and happiness, because what we resist persists, right? And when we resist, that's what builds the stress, and that's what causes us to not feel good and can create health problems. I mean, the greatest way to keep our immunity up is to try to go with the flow and not let that stress build up. So that acceptance, that, this is just the new normal, and I do the best I can, and I've done really well so far. When I look back, I'm still doing okay. So as long as I am aware of my surroundings, aware of the things I need to do, and taking care of myself, my family, then I can start to build a flow, a routine, things that are going to help me, like you say, feel a sense of process, but also progress, and accepting that all of life is the journey, right? We're all in the process all the time. But we need to feel a little sense of progress, so we make those little small goals, very manageable things, small wins, and you learn that with kids too, and we learn how to live in one day at a time. And in the long run, we end up appreciating the present and living in the present and being much more, at least peaceful, if not joyful, much of the time. So, it's the same things we've done in the pandemic. You have to have strong boundaries too. You have to limit the times that you're interrupted, whether it's by, unnecessary electronic stuff, or whether it's the news. Because if we don't set the boundaries and take control of that being interrupted, we're going to have a very difficult time creating a flow and staying in a flow. And, if you have some basic flow, those interruptions that have to come, like with the kids or whatever, they're not going to stress you out so much. But if you have too much of that, then you're never going to feel like you're in the flow, or just, in the process of the journey, and it's going to be much harder to not get stressed. So finding the flow, finding something you can fully immerse yourself in. Like I say, little small goals, small wins can be really helpful too. And not, like say, being hard on yourself or anybody else. None of us have done this before, so, we're all trying to figure this out. And just, having that compassion for yourself, as well as how much I know you all have for each other.
And Terry, would you talk for a moment about it being okay to feel joy again, to feel happy again, to feel abundant again? Because a lot of people feel guilty that they made it through and they're doing okay, and they feel as though they can't express that joy because the world just went through something tremendous. But it's important to feel joy and happiness.
Yes, it is so important. And it's the balance, it's the yin and yang. We are supposed to allow ourselves to experience it all. And I think of, the people who have suffered and passed, they would want us to, find joy wherever we can. I think that they know the world needs that energy, and that's a healing energy. And so anytime we're putting out any kind of, feelings of positive or joy or abundance, or it's really part of the healing for all of us, as well as, like I say, supporting each other in our sadness and our grief. But there's both, there's always both, and having that balance, and doesn't, having joy doesn't take away from the awareness of suffering in the world either. It's a way of helping to lift up and heal those who have suffered, and help us be in a place where we can help them because we're not suffering.
What a great way to wrap up your show.
Oh, good. Well, that was good timing.
That was outstanding. Thank you for that,
I
Terry.
didn't realize we were already out of time. It always goes by so fast. But it is so wonderful to talk with you all.
I was just thanking everybody in the chat room that stopped in this morning to be with us from all across north, south, east, and west to be present for our conversation this morning. Thank you, Terry, for helping to keep us in balance.
Oh, thank you all. Love you all. God bless.
Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.